back channel and support each other with ideas, because I know Padlet is not a really new tool and you probably have already done a lot with it, and maybe you're just kind of refreshing. Maybe some of you are new to it. So if you would go to the chat now and just give me a number from 1 to 3. 1 is I'm totally new with Padlet. 2 is I kind of used it, and 3 is I think I'm pretty good. I just maybe want a few more ideas, but I'm pretty expert. 1, 2, or 3. Where are you? Okay, cool. Right. Nice, good. We have a lot of 1s and 2s, and we do have a couple of 3s. So what we will be doing right now is I'm going to kind of just like present, and then you'll get the basic information, I think, and a feel for Padlet. And then Xiao, of course, can always meet with you and really work through Padlet with you. Hunter does offer free Padlet account. So this is all available to you with a lot of support. Xiao has many years of experience with Padlet. So you'll be able to implement all of this if you'd like to. So I'm going to kind of go through, and then we can always chat a little bit afterwards. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going now to what I call portion of the screen, so that I can actually use my Padlet as a presentation tool. So I'm just going to double check with my ACERT buddies here. Anybody want to tell me what they're seeing right now on the shared screen? Just unmute and tell me.
Just the Hunter logo. It says welcome to ACERT and the Hunter logo.
Perfect. Okay. So one of the cool things with Zoom is when you share your screen, you don't have to share just like the whole desktop or even your browser. You can go to advanced, and it gives you share a portion of your screen. And I like that sometimes because I can keep a lot of things out there, but just move them into view when I want to. So Julie, where's my girl Julie, my buddy? Julie, remember we were talking about my my fancy PowerPoints? And you're like, oh God, here she comes again with her cutesy pootsy PowerPoints. No, in a good way, in a positive way. And I said, God, she gave me an idea. I was at a session recently where someone just used Padlet for the presentation, like you would for a PowerPoint. And what's really nice about that is when you go to export your Padlet, it prints beautifully as a PDF. That much better than PowerPoint prints out, because you got to deal with notes, slides, and lines on the slide, and 3 per page, and all that jazz when you're printing off a PowerPoint. Works really well. Yeah, so keep putting your questions in, ideas, comments, anything you want during my little quickie talk here in the chat, and people can respond. So when you go to Zoom and you select advanced share portion of screen, it gives you a green frame. And so basically what I've done is I've just, you see how I'm enlarging it so I can show more or less of the screen as I want. So I have my whole Padlet set up here as my presentation. So welcome to ACERT. ACERT is a fabulous group at Hunter. If you haven't been here to an ACERT event before, would you put that in the chat and say this is my first time doing an ACERT event? It would be really cool to see who's new. So what we're going to talk about is the possibilities of Padlet, ways that we can use Padlet. And you'll find tons of resources online. What I'm really here to do is kind of boil it down for you and show you some of the things that you might do with your students. So before we go any further, I'm going to actually have you, if you can, click on the link in the chat if you're someone on a computer right now. I know Christiana is like driving somewhere. She's like, I ain't got no computer, but I'm going to follow along, which is totally great. If you can go to the Padlet, if you are on a computer, I've put the link in the chat, and it's going to bring you to this Padlet. Okay. And what I'd like you to do is actually just try to post something any idea about Padlet, maybe an idea you have used or something you want to try. And what you're going to do is type at the bottom of the screen where there is a kind of a white box, and then it says post. Okay, so you'll see now the chats are coming up onto the screen, right? I don't know what it can do. Or Daniel said I know I can use it as an icebreaker. I can check in on people's moods. I'm just saying hello, I'm trying this out. Timelines, etc. Beautiful. So the great thing about Padlet is the different types of formats you can use. This is a format that is just an open chat kind of format. So you see as someone posts, it just kind of comes up the line. It's like an extended chat. If you see yourself coming in anonymous, it's because you don't have a Padlet account. If you have a Padlet account, it knows you and it will just put your name at the top of your post. So that's kind of a nice thing to know. You can also set your Padlet to allow it to be anonymous or only allow people that are members or whatever. Okay, somebody likes the colors. Okay, that's a big part of Padlet is really the visual aspect too. Really kind of it has a nice clean look as well as some fun backgrounds. Okay, so coming back over here, another nice thing with Padlet is, and I'll show you the back end in a minute, but I posted a link just now. Really quick, you could go to the link and participate. But you can also generate a QR code. The Padlet generates them for you. You don't have to go to a QR maker. And so that's another thing you can do is have your students just simply hold up their phone. They can quickly go to that Padlet and use their phone. It can be challenging when you're teaching and you have yourself, your class on Zoom, you have maybe a PowerPoint or slide deck or something your students are looking at, and to have them go over and to a new tab and start to enter something. It can be a bit confusing. So I find it is helpful to have students have your phone ready and interact a lot with the phone when you're asking for that kind of live posting. So that works very well. They just hold up their phone as long as they're on photos or not, and it'll open up. Okay, one of the things I like to do with these tech talks is just a very brief, super brief, but kind of like the underlying principles of why we are using these tools, because we can then apply that to future decisions we make. So there's this model called the SAMR. Are you familiar with SAMR? Tell me yes or no in the chat if you've heard of this model before. SAMR. Okay, so this is a model of how to integrate educational technology, and sort of in these two ways. The base ways are kind of just to enhance your teaching, but then more sophisticated uses are really transformative. So at the base level, a technology tool just substitutes. There's really nothing you're doing differently. It's just that you're substituting one thing for another. So for example, instead of having the whiteboard and I have Amber and Sarah giving me ideas and I write them, I'm posting it on a Padlet. You know, it's just substituting because I'm not in person. The next level is this kind of augmentation. It's a substitute, but there's a bit of an improvement on doing it in face-to-face. So for example, let's say Christopher is wanting to show students something with video. You know, if he was with students in a classroom, he might show the video, stop it and say, hey, what do you think? And then continue. Well, now he uses a tool where students can maybe decide where they stop and insert comments, and then they go forward and they insert comments. So that could be a tool that augments something that he was normally doing in class. It's a substitution with a slight improvement or enhancement. Then we get into sort of this transformative, and in those, the technology actually gives you the chance to do something that you couldn't really do in person. So for example, things like the Padlet, right? One of the things I want to show you really quick is, for example, let's say you have a conference. I just finished a conference this weekend, and I had people from all over the world, and they were able to post into this message board over time and from everywhere in the world. Okay, so this is not something that I could do in person. It transforms what I'm able to do. I would not normally be able to have all of these people participating, etc., without, let's say, a Padlet type of approach. Okay, so when we are thinking about this model, this SAMR model, and we're thinking about Padlet, we're thinking about those 4 levels. So in terms of substitution, what you saw just now, students can create their own, let's say, posts, texts, writing, rather than coming up and like writing something on the board or sharing something on a poster, right? Students can also do this on their own time, asynchronously. And so that's an augmentation over what you could do in a face-to-face class. Students can actually post to each other or respond to each other's posts with Padlet. And they can also bring in that multimodal aspect. They can actually insert things that are images, videos, screencasts, audios, as well as text language. And they can do that in a large community. So that's kind of sort of those principles that I think are helpful to realize that what the capabilities are, but also how you're using it. Because when you realize there are more capabilities, it actually gives you more ideas for more types of activities that you could design, instead of just sort of, well, I'm just going to use Padlet because I have to, because we're not face to face. Thinking beyond, how can I go into this new space of distance learning using Padlet? So I'm going to give you 5 examples of the way I've used it recently. Obviously, a great one, easy to think about first, is an introduction board. And I call them boards because Padlet is really like a big bulletin board that you're tacking up a bunch of things to it virtually. So my introduction board. So with my introduction board, the way that works is obvious, just like you can imagine. I know Xiao and I have used these before in different workshops. Students post a little bit about who they are before your class begins. So I did this before this fall semester. I put out the link. Now what I did was I put a post here as well as instructions in that I sent to them, because it makes it easier for them when they open the Padlet to know what they're supposed to do. And it was something that was like the first assignment in the class, right? So you see the students, these are our Hunter students who've posted into the Padlet, okay? There is something very different and beautiful, I think, about Padlet because of the way its design features set you up to have this sort of montage board or collage board. It rearranges itself always to kind of fit well. And like Xiao just said, sticky notes. So I can move things around if I want to. I can reorder them. And because I can integrate the photo with the text, it's visually appealing, it's aesthetic. It makes you kind of want to look through more than just like a long document. It will size itself. So if I'm looking at it on my phone or an iPad or a big computer, it will automatically adjust. You can see that, you can see that if I want to edit or change anything, I can, because I'm the creator of the Padlet. So sometimes I realize students have put things a little wrong, or there's a typo that I didn't really want everyone to see. I can actually go in and adjust some of their posts. I can also move my posts. So you can see how I'm moving this one by clicking and dragging. I can make sure that I can also rearrange things on my Padlet. Okay, I'm going to go back here. Another kind of board is a choice board. With a choice board, those are a little bit different because you're the one who's posting most of the items. So choice boards are great when you do have some kind of a task for your students, but you want to let them have some options with it. So with the choice board, this was something that I gave students before this course started this fall. It was in the summer, and I asked them to be part of a summer book club. So I posted book choices, and I wrote a little bit about what the books were. And then they had to choose a book and write a post back to it. So in this case, let's say the newcomers, here's some students actually responding to that particular book that they had chosen. Okay, so you can post anything you want on a choice board. You could post 5 research articles, you could post 5 links to different films. You can post 5 different artworks, whatever it is. And as long as the task is the same for everyone, you can put the task in to your assignments and let students have some choice or variety. You can also have your posts ability to have likes or stars or clicks on them. So for example, your post that you did when we just started this session, if I like the idea, let's see, introductions, getting to know you, I could rate that. I'm going to give that 5 stars, that idea. So I can rate ideas, I can like them. So you can build that into the assignment so that it creates that interactivity. It's not just like a post and leave it. You want to think about how can students come back to it and maybe add on a comment or a rating or whatever. Okay. Third thing I was going to show you is a map board. Padlet also allows you to set up maps. So this is an activity like an icebreaker where I ask people to mark where in the world they are from and something about it. And the Padlet options for format, one format option is a world map. And you can also, though, zoom in or out of it, so you can get much closer in than the big wide world. And it's kind of neat because when you click on these different, if I had students writing something about it, let's see if I can find one that someone has written, there could be like a whole little story here or whatever you want. Okay. The next one I want to show you is the peer response board. A peer response board works really well when the assignment involves students not only initially posting, but having to respond to at least a couple other students. One of the challenges with peer response in something like Blackboard is once a student has uploaded an assignment, how does anybody else see it except for you? So then you have to somehow push it back out to them. Or you set it up, let's say, in a Google kind of system. Padlet is very neat for this because, and I'll just open my peer response. This is an assignment that I did this semester. It's called a 5 and 5 plus 2. So what I do is I give students a slide deck that I've pre-made, just a basic template. They can change it as they want. And it gives, and they choose an article, a peer-reviewed research article. In this case, the topic is related to teacher leadership. So first of all, they have a choice board. They choose the article they want. Then they do obviously, the purpose of the study, the findings, the implications, the connections on 5 slides. But what I had them do this time is instead of presenting their 5 and 5, like in small groups that I might do in class at Hunter on campus, they recorded their presentations. So some of the students used Zoom, some used Screencast-O-Matic, some used Loom. They actually had to learn how to do a screencasting so that they could present, and it couldn't be longer than 5 minutes. So it was 5 points in 5 minutes. It took them, so it's not too much to watch either. And the +2 is you have to watch 2 other people's videos and comment on them and post that. So it kind of all fits on a Padlet well, because as an instructor, I can just go through, I can see all of my students' assignments. I can see the comments that have been placed there. I can also add my comment to it. And it really creates that kind of like a poster presentation, kind of a feel in a virtual space, because the students get to choose not only their article that they're sharing, but they get to choose whose they want to visit. They're not forced to listen through a bunch of presentations that maybe aren't interesting for them. They can just choose 2 and then they write their comments. And it's held here for the semester. So it's visually something that we can return to or go back to. So I really liked how this worked out, as a peer review. Okay, and then the last one is what I'm calling a resource board. And with the resource board, this I did, I wanted to show you an example as a professional, not just working with your teachers, but something you might use at a conference or for a webinar that you're hosting in your professional area. So with a resource board, this is another format of Padlet. You can set up bookshelves so that things don't just become a big montage, they actually stay fixed in columns. So I create the column, and this happened to be some of my work on video analysis, which Mr. David Connor has done with me in the past. It was a showcase of faculty work that I was presenting on a webinar, and people wanted the PDFs, they wanted the handouts, and this was a way to provide it without having a long string of URLs or just a list of references. I actually uploaded these PDFs of people's projects into these slots, which was basically about the program, where students were in the program at the time, early, mid, or late. So this becomes a nice resource and a way to display things that stay a bit more organized if you have categories like this. So this is a kind of a column style Padlet. Okay. I'm just going to kind of finish up and let us have some time to talk. As I said, it would be 30 minutes. So there are a lot of resources out there. I just pulled a couple that I thought were good for higher education, because as I'm sure you have found, the K-12 teaching world is busting with, innovation and ideas that a lot of us in higher ed can really take advantage of right now. And I encourage you to always don't exclude something because you think it's for elementary school. It probably has really good ideas for you in higher ed. Higher ed is a bit slower to kind of push a lot of these ideas out. So these I think work very well for higher ed. This is a particular 20 ways to use Padlet. This is actually doing your whole teaching episode remotely through Padlet. It's a short video. And then I did give you a bunch of links that I thought were great. We had a lot of ideas, so many creative ideas for using Padlet. And then just the basic instructions here on, how do you do this thing? How do you get started? So in that line, just before we kind of finish, I'll just show you quickly my Padlet home. It looks like this. So every Padlet that I've made, I can click on made and I get all my Padlets there. Okay. I could also organize them in folders, but of course I'm really bad with that. So they're not in good folders, but if you're an organized person, they would be. If you want to add someone's Padlet that you've seen, let's say you like any of my Padlets today, all you have to do is click on the heart. So let's say you're on my Padlet, this one that I just did for our presentation today. Let me put the presentation one into the chat. Okay, so now you immediately have my entire presentation, all my links, everything, and it's not like kind of a clunky slideshow. So you have it all there. Now, if you like my Padlet, you can, all you do is go up here. See, there's a little heart up at the top. You click that. When you click that and you go back to your Padlet home, which is called your dashboard, that Padlet's going to appear in your liked area. So it's a way to actually have a little organized area of other people's Padlets to keep. So for example, I just liked that one, so it went in there, even though it's my own. This is actually a Hunter colleague. She did a beautiful Padlet, beautiful, of resources around her new book. And it was such a good presentation. I was watching it on a webinar and I just liked it. And now I can always go back to it and actually look through it later because it's saved in my my own home. So really quick, how do you start? What do? You go to your homepage for dashboard, your home Padlet account. I used to have a different one that was until Hunter started paying for it. So make sure you're in one, and you may need to bring your Padlets over to it by liking them and getting them into your new Hunter Padlet. You simply go to this pink, make a Padlet. then have these choices. The ones that we've seen that are like the montage where everything kind of fits together. This is a fun one. You can actually draw lines. So I could put different images and say, how do these connect, or ideas, how do they connect, or our stories, how do they connect? The stream is what I used for this presentation. It's much easier to follow a stream if you're presenting because it's just a straight line up and down, and it prints out beautifully. As I mentioned, the grid, arranging things in rows. I talked about the bookshelf. The back channel was the very first one we did, which looks more like a chat back and forth. I also did the map with you, and timeline is another fun one that might work for you. It literally makes a line, and you can have students rearrange things in a time order or create something that happened in a time order, etc. So let's say I'm going to do that. When I hit select, it will always give you a really fun name and some kind of background. So what you basically do is you go over here. Let's see, what am I gonna say? Hunter Fun. Okay, and then I can describe it. Okay, then I can add in an icon. I can pick an emoji, or I can upload something. So for my professional conference, I uploaded the logo, for my association, and that was at the top of the Padlet, and people then will see it in their browser window like that too. You can change the color, the background, the font. I can say, do I want the author name or no? I can disable comments. If I just want to put out a choice board, but I don't want any commenting on it, I can also turn off comments. I talked about these. We can have stars, upvoting, liking, rating. I can have it where I have to approve it first. I can filter profanity, but who wants to filter profanity? Profanity is fun, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, now, next part is the sharing. The sharing is under here. And this is where also I can make it private, I can make it public, and this is all the different ways that I can embed it, I can create a link, a QR code, I can post it right into Google Classroom. And this is the save as PDF that I just love. So that's basically, I'm going to go back to my Padlet. I'm going to show you, if I were to save this as a PDF, I can do it as legal paper, portrait, landscape, whatever. I'm just going to do letter, portrait, publish PDF, and look how it comes out as a PDF. It's got everything here. It's super for conferences because that's it. That's a lot nicer, I think, as a handout type of thing as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop my sharing and let us have questions. And if maybe Shao wants to share anything in terms of like instructions for Padlet or anything. So thank you, everybody. And we have some questions. So let's see. I see Valerie has a hand raised. Oh, yay. Thank you for those little